something else. And symmetry is one part of the beauty, whether you're talking about babies or kids or old people or young people or whatever. Facial symmetry is very important. It's not the only beauty marker in the face we look at. We can talk about that in a moment too, because that gets us into some other research we've done. But symmetry is a very important one. Now, that research went on to look at how symmetry plays out in the everyday lives of people. And we did the initial studies on that, but again, that research bloomed and lots of people have done it, and still it's an active part of research. But the first thing we did, not just attractiveness, we did a bunch of that in relation to symmetry, but we looked at sex lives of people, romantically paired people, studies of couples, and looked at reports by men and women of sex partner number that they've had in their lifetime. That was one component of it, because that's a measure in men in particular of what biologists call mating success. So number of sexual partners one has, and that research showed that for men, the more symmetric the man, the more sex partners he had. And a technical detail there, after we initially started with facial symmetry, but then we moved to the body of people. We came up with a metric for body symmetry, measuring 11 traits on both sides of the body. These traits are ear length and ear width. And then we measure elbow. There's some elbow anatomy there that we measure, some bones, wrists, fingers, all those, and then measured, of course, on both sides. Measure foot width, ankle width, traits like that. And then we put that together in a composite as a measure of body bilateral symmetry. That correlates highly with facial symmetry because the symmetry is a developmental health measure throughout the body. And that correlates with mating success of men. More symmetric men are physically more attractive, and they have more sex partners. We also got into looking at men's infidelities in marriage relationships, and found that more symmetric men engage in more matings outside the pair bond as well. So that's part of their mating success. We did the first study of kind of modern study, we would call it, of female orgasm in copulatory orgasm. So in part, looking at women, 200 romantically paired couples, and asking the women about their orgasm patterns during mating with their partner, and separately asking the men. And we found that the men's reports and the women's reports of frequency of copulatory orgasm by the women were very highly correlated. So men are paying attention to this phenomenon of whether the female is sexually aroused to the zenith level of orgasm, of course. And more symmetric men were firing more copulatory orgasms too. That was a very classic study in human
So I have a specific question about that.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to ask a biologist interested in sexual behavior, but I know that there's been a lot of discussion about the hypothetical evolutionary purpose of female orgasm. And I was wondering if female orgasm is disproportionately likely to trigger male orgasm. Because it could be an adaptation that's used to elicit pregnancy, essentially.
Yeah, I don't think it is. There's no evidence that females that orgasm very infrequently have fewer babies, and actually women who don't ever orgasm can be quite fertile. So I don't think it's fundamentally that. I think what it is it's part of female mate choice, and more basically sire choice of the female. And let me explain. So when a female has an orgasm, she has uterine contraction, of course, and it works like a suction. It pulls the content of the vagina up to the cervix. So it puts the content of the vagina in a good place. And if that content includes the male's ejaculate, then she's pulling the male's ejaculate up to the cervix, where it's easier for him to get, either for the ejaculate to get into the right place to conceive. So imagine a female who has two mating partners. She orgasms with one, pulling his ejaculate up to the cervix, and she skips orgasm with the other partner. So she, in effect, is mated with both men. So that is, same mating success of the two men, if you just look at mating success. But she's doing something more subtle that is differentially affecting the fertilizing capacity of the ejaculate of the two men. The ejaculate she pulls up has more potential for fertilization. And that's a component of cryptic female choice. So in the 80s, I discovered what I labeled as cryptic female choice, first in insects, and then it applied to female orgasm too in humans. As cryptic female choice is just the kind of female choice that is invisible if you're only measuring mating success. So in the example we talked about, the two guys mating with this female had the same mating success. They both mated with her, but one was preferred over the other by the female's orgasmic capacity with him that pulled his ejaculate up. And so females, by showing this differential orgasm pattern that I described with symmetry, are favoring symmetric partners over other men.
And hypothetically healthier partners and hypothetically providing their kids with an advantage.
That's right, higher genetic quality. And then that's an issue behind all this discussion so far, is that female organisms are after high genetic quality partners when they're to be fathers of their offspring. So it's a sire choice. A cryptic female choice is more of a sire choice than just a mate choice. And Charles Darwin discovered female choice and did a lot with it, for sure. And biologists had viewed female choice in a Darwinian framework up until very recently, until cryptic female choice came along. But females are far more sophisticated than just choosing one male over another as a mate. They do these subtle things involved in cryptic choice to prefer the sperm of some mates